Roostertail Talk, a podcast dedicated to everything related to the sport we all love, hydroplane racing. I'm your host, David Newton, and it's time once again, so sit back, relax, and welcome to Roostertail Talk. It is March 10th, 2020, and this is episode 25, part 2 of the Chip Hanauer Fireside Chat. Hopefully you had a chance to listen in to last week's episode. Last time we talked about memories in racing and other greats in the sport. We start this episode going a little bit deeper as Chip reflects on his fiercest competitor. We also talk about, well, let's just get to the interview and you can hear for yourself. Going back to those names on the list there, you mentioned Jim Crotfield. I wanted to know for a while, was he kind of like the fiercest competitor?
Yeah.
That you felt like on the water?
No question.
Yeah.
No question. I mean, there's fierce competitors, but they might not be talented. Mm-hmm. Or they might be talented, but not fierce. That guy had it all. And he was, the word that comes to mind with Jim is just tough. Really tough. And I think when I look back at my time in racing, I value that time the most, racing against Jim, because it was so hard. We had pretty equal equipment, and he was so good. And as I said earlier, when I beat him, I felt like on top of the world. But if I got beat by him, I'm okay with that. As opposed to getting beat by somebody you don't respect. And I liked him. We got to be good friends. It's really funny. One time, my favorite Jim Crotfield story. We won the world championship, the national championship in, I think it was 83, when I blew an engine in Texas and stopped the heat, jumped out of the boat, stopped the heat, and they had to rerun the heat, and they couldn't finish. And we won the championship. It was like foul. In my mind, it was, I didn't think it would work. I figured it was the Budweiser. All they had to do was go and do 5 laps. And in fact, I was walking to my car when they were running the final heat, assuming they're just going to run 5 laps. And all of a sudden, I hear this scream, and they went down. So they changed the rules. You couldn't do that. But we got our championship. So in San Diego, I blew a turbine wheel, and the wheel basically cut the boat in half, honeycomb boat in salt water. So I stopped the heat because I knew if the boat submerged, the boat would be ruined forever. Because once the salt water enters the honeycomb,
it's game over.
It's over.
Yeah.
So I stopped the heat. And so the boat had to go to Hawaii, I believe. So we loaded up and headed back to Seattle, and I was driving the coach so the guys could sleep because they were going to have to work their butts off. And we stopped for breakfast in Redding. It was sun up, and I called my brother, and he goes, "Jim Crotfield called you a low-life scum in the paper." I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Chip Hanauer is a low-life scum for jumping in," because he thought I did just to stop the heat. So I walked back into the coach, and the team was all awake there, and I walked in, and the coach and I said, "Wow, Jim Crotfield called me a low-life scum in the paper." And Mike Campbell said, "Well, that's libel. You could sue him for that." And Fran Muncie said, "Yeah, but then you'd have to prove in court that you weren't a low-life scum. You better leave it alone." But it's really funny, to be called a low-life scum in the newspaper by somebody, but then, becoming great friends. And I think what we had, and I hope we had, is a mutual respect. I know we did because he expressed it. So I think of all the things I'm proudest of, and there's a lot in my time racing. I think having Jim Crotfield's respect is really high up there.
Yeah.
I thought that much of him.
Wow. And flipping the script, in interviews years ago.
Let me interrupt you.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think there's other drivers that, like Jim, weren't around very long, that had huge talent.
Yeah.
But they're not household hydroplane names. Another guy is George Henley.
Okay.
That guy was phenomenally talented.
Yeah.
In Lake Rockfield. Two different characters. Jim was a tough guy on the beach and in the boat. George Henley was the sweetest guy on the planet on the beach, but was one tough son of a bitch in the boat. I didn't get to race against George, but we became good friends and we spent a lot of time together while I was racing. But watching him in limited, I mean, he was amazing. So there's a lot of drivers out there that had immense talent, and George just chose to walk away. And he tried to talk me into walking away every year. He kept telling me to quit because, again, we were losing drivers. He was a Jim Cropfield kind of character because Jim doesn't have a huge amount of, I think if you look at the list, he's not, but I don't know anybody that was better than Jim.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing with Jim's stats, he has a really high percentage of win percentage.
Yeah, he was in there for a short period of time.
Yeah, it was a short period of time, but a lot of wins in that short time. So it's one of the highest percentages.
He didn't really suffer through bad boats and
I think it was just the last year with Winston.
Yeah,
he just had a crummy year that last year, but everything else was.
But if you look at his whole career, and again, I always look at racing, not just unlimited, but the guy was great in everything he touched. I saw him. We raced not against each other, but at the '77 Nationals in Los Angeles at Lake Castaic, and again, he was phenomenal. He was magic.
Yeah. Well, flipping the script, I saw an interview a few years ago. I think it was like he had something at the museum. It was like sitting on the couch with Chip or chatting with Chip or something like that.
I think we did Wayne's World.
Was it Wayne's World with Chip? Yeah, something like that. That was really fun to watch. But you said in the interview there was a couple of drivers that you didn't really trust out there. Yeah. Would you mind talking about that?
No. I think what's amazing about that, and you're right, there was two guys that I didn't respect. I think they had lack of character. But what's amazing about that is that in decades and decades of racing, there's only two.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the only two I can think of that I don't have a high opinion of. We just got done talking about Jim Cropfield, and he and I just sat there and punched each other in the face, year after year. But I just have. So I don't think it's remarkable that there are two guys I don't respect. I think what's remarkable is that there's only two guys in all my years of racing that I respect.
Yeah, that's definitely a very low percentage.
Very low
percentage.
I mean, people that work with a group, how many people can you in somebody's office,
Yeah.
And that's a lot easier than going out there and going 200 miles an hour against each other. So what really sticks out to me about those two guys is how many people I enjoyed and respected and became friends with, or not friends with, but still respected.
Yeah.
Like there were guys I know that didn't like me at all, but we had mutual respect. So I think that's what's remarkable.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's amazing about powerboat racing is it generally, by and large, has wonderful, wonderful people.
It really does. And one thing that stands out for me is whenever there's some issue with a boat. Last year, for example, I was in Tri-Cities, and I think it was a 5-liter flipped on the backstretch, and everyone stopped what they were doing, and their thoughts were on that driver, and everyone was concerned about that. They come together, and everyone's really concerned about one another, and it's one kind of big family in that sense.
It is, and I think that word family gets thrown around a lot. I think businesses say, "Oh, we're all a big family," but then they fire a third of them.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're no longer part of the family. But in racing, and I saw it in all forms of racing, because I went race cars for Toyota for a while, and racing's different. And I also got to see it through the eyes of people who've been involved in quote athletics versus racing. For example, the handlers I had at Budweiser, when you have a big sponsorship, you have a handler, and he's looking out for Miller or Budweiser or Atlas or. And most of them had been involved in the NFL, the NBA, or Major League Baseball or soccer, and then they got assigned to racing. And when they first got assigned to racing, they weren't very happy about it.
Really?
But then, very quickly, they're like, oh my God, this is wonderful. You people are really genuine and welcoming, and they all really learned to love it.
Wow. Well, getting back to those two drivers, would you name who they are?
It wouldn't serve any purpose. Okay. I know who they are, and that's all that's important.
All right. Well, one thing I'm curious about, you retired in '99, and not necessarily just the sport and the organization, but other racing teams, I would think that they would want to use as many assets as they could to further their program. Did any team ever come up to you for assistance, maybe even driver coaching or any other PR since '99?
No.
I'm really surprised about that.
Yeah, I am too. It's kind of funny, not that I think I have, but if things are reversed, well, let me reverse things with music now.
Mm-hmm.
If there's somebody out there that I think can give me any help that I can learn one thing from, I want to know. I want to talk to them.
Yeah.
And I would be, I did have a few wins. I did make money at the sport. I did it my whole life as a profession. I would think somebody would have called up and gone, what can you tell me?
Yeah.
What are we doing wrong here? Your question was since '99. Now, there have been people that have approached me, but I can't remember if it was before or after '99.
Oh, okay.
Owners were funny. This happened a number of times. They did call up. One called up wanting me to drive. It was one of my times. I'd stopped driving. Mm-hmm. And I said, no, I'm done. And I said, but let me tell you something. He was going to buy a team. I said, don't go in there. You don't know what you don't know. I can give you names of people that go with you to help you. Mm-hmm. And just kind of volunteer some stuff. Nope, I know what we're doing. And I see it happen a lot in racing where owners will come in and they've been successful at whatever their business is. Yeah. So they think they can apply that knowledge and that's going to work in racing. It doesn't work that way. If I was going to build a strip mall, I would seek out anybody that I could, because I don't know what I don't know about the traps of building a strip mall. It is funny that owners, I remember one owner did ask for help. Maybe the second half of your question is, did anybody reach out? Mm-hmm. And maybe I was wrong. Yes, I guess some people did. The answer to your question is, do they listen? No. There was one owner that was bound and determined to run 2 boats, but he couldn't run one boat well. And I tried to explain to him, no, you're going to take your program that's already a fledgling program, and you're going to dilute it, that you're going to have 2 horrible programs. Nope, I got it figured out. Okay, well, I can tell you it didn't work out.
Wow. Well, to me, it's very surprising to hear, because, like you mentioned, like with jobs, right? So, as a teacher, when I started teaching, I sought out everyone I could to become a good teacher and to become better in the profession. Right. Because, like you said, you don't know what you don't know. Right. And I went to school to learn how to teach, but I wasn't really in the classroom to practice that. Right. So you need as much practice and knowledge and as much information as I could. Right. I would think as a team you would want that as well.
You would think, and I don't think they should come to me specifically, but they should go to anybody. Right. Anybody that I think can help me in music, even if they're a different kind of music, different instrument. Mm-hmm. But, here, I've got a great story. that basically illustrates that. So Jim Crawford had a great crew chief, and all of a sudden I'm forgetting his name. In Limited Boats.
In limited
Boats. And
I'm not sure.
I apologize, I can't remember his name, but he was phenomenal. And we were at Madison one time, and I'm just killing time, and I'm walking down looking at all the limited boats. And here's his crew chief standing. I watched him at every single boat. Some of them complete pieces of crap. And I walked up to him, and he spent probably 15 minutes going to every single boat and walking around it. And I'm like, what are you looking at this thing for? And he said, because every one of these boats has one good idea that I need to steal. He goes, it might be something completely benign and innocuous, but every one of these boats has one good idea, and I need to figure out what it is. George English was his name. And I always admired and liked George. And his son, I think, is racing Grand Prix boats now as an owner. But I had huge respect for him. And when he gave me that answer, that made total sense to me. So I'm the same way now with music, as I'm new to, I didn't learn music as a child. So anybody that I think can give me the slightest little, thing, I want to listen to. But for some reason, and it goes back to where we started in this interview, I think that's progressive thinking. And there's a huge lack of progressive thinking in unlimited hydroplane racing, I think. Unlike RC racing, look at, I know you and some of my friends are, look at what electric boats have done. And whether it worked or didn't work. But you guys were progressive enough to go, let's change. And are they perfect? No. But is it working? Is it bringing people back into the sport? Our friend Don Mock is back.
Yeah, it's bringing old racers back that quit years ago. It's bringing new people in. It's bringing in a power plant that is more readily available. That's easier to maintain. It's longer longevity. And I can go test, like around here, I can't really test my natural boats anymore. Because I get kicked off the lake.
We're sitting in Lake Washington right now as we do this interview. You could step out on the dock right here and test it, and nobody would care.
Yeah, I go down to Coolin Park and run my electric boat. I get people watching, and they leave, But if I ran my nitro boat that was 95 decibels and spitting out fuel and smoke, I would get the sheriff on me in 5 seconds.
RC boats have been progressive, had the courage to change, had the courage to try something new. I don't see that in unlimited racing. I know one thing I'd like to talk about. I'd like to talk about Seattle last year, the Seattle race. So, and I come at this from a personal point of view. But also a professional point of view and a lover of the sport. And I had done live television for Cairo for 100 years. I don't know how many years I've done it, but and then we lost live television. It's the worst thing that can happen. And getting live television is the best thing that can happen. So we get live television back in the sport. And if you just sat me down and said, what is the worst thing, the single worst thing that the sport could do to hurt themselves, what would that thing be? Would it be somebody getting injured? No, not as far as hurting the sport. It would be waiting to the end of the broadcast and then changing who won the race. From a personal point of view, it really pissed me off because I was there to help people understand what they're watching, the sport. So I took it personal that after the broadcast is over, they imagine turning the Seahawk game off. And then finding out Monday that, oh no, they changed the results. So to that example, I was in my local grocery store on Monday evening after the race, and some guy recognizes me, and he comes running up, and he was like crazy excited. He goes, "Oh my God, it was such a great race, and I'm so grateful it's back on television. Man, I'm so excited." And I go, "Yeah, it was really a great race, 2 amazingly good drivers doing a great job." And I said, "Yeah, it was really great." And I said, "God, it's just so sad that they changed the results. This is Monday evening." He looked at me and he said, "What?" I said, "They changed the results." And he was dumbfounded. He goes, "You're joking." I said, No, Graham Trucking won." So I just can't understand that the lack of understanding. You say you're a professional sport, you're a professional entertainment business, and you just did the worst thing you could possibly do. So it just, things like that just make me crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely hard as a fan to be there at the beach, watch it live, go home, and then...
Or watch it on television.
Yeah.
You didn't know. Yeah. We left the broadcast. So what they were trying to do, I'm sure the officials were trying to be, but when you're in the entertainment business, sometimes the person you have to protect is the fan. The fan. And getting a call wrong would have hurt if the, and I don't know whether the call is right or wrong, but let's assume that it's a right call, that Jimmy Shane should have won the race. They hurt so many more people by reversing that call than they would have been better off going up to Jimmy Shane and saying, "We got it wrong, sorry." But because if you look at any other sport, they get it wrong a lot, but they don't screw over the fan. They eat it. So if you were at the beach last year or you watched our broadcast, are you going to sit there all day and do it again, knowing that when you get back in your car or you turn your television set off or you go to QFC and find out that, nope, what you saw isn't what you saw? So that kind of thinking just, to me, demonstrates they have no idea what business that they're in.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about, isn't it?
You just can't do it.
Yeah.
They could have gone up but you can't do that. You can't penalize the fan. You can penalize yourself. You can penalize the driver, getting it wrong, but you can't hurt the fan. Yeah. And they did. They really did. Yeah. And there's talk about maybe getting back on TV again. And from a personal note, it makes me wonder, do I want to do that? Do I want to be the color guy that people believe knows what he's talking about and be embarrassed by that? I don't think I do.
Yeah, it doesn't make you look very good if what you're saying is actually false in the end, right?
I don't want to be associated if that's how they're going to run things. I'm just a broadcaster now. I'm not even a broadcaster. I'm a washed up race driver talking. With a voice like this, you're not a broadcaster. But do I want to be, because I take it serious. Yeah. I believe that it's an important job, and I want people to love the sport like I do and to understand there's more to see and understand. But then when they do that, I'm like, I don't want to be associated.
Yeah. Well, in thinking about the sport now, one thing I think it has going for itself is there are a lot of talented drivers.
Hugely talented drivers.
Are you impressed by that? Is that different than many years ago?
I'm not as impressed by it as I'm grateful that I didn't have to race any of them. Really talented.
Yeah. Who are some that impress you right now?
Andrew Tate, Jimmy Shane, And I think J. Michael Kelly is hugely gifted. He might be the best boat race driver I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
He's very good.
Yeah.
And Tate's right there, and Jimmy on a good day is right there. And, there's a huge, and it's so frustrating to me that there's this huge driver talent out there, and the sport is nowhere. I mean, I only actually worked in a real job I worked going through college, but once I left college, I only taught for 2 years. I was paid to be a professional boat racer. And these guys, as talented as they are, I don't think they make a living driving race boats. They have to have a real job. Yeah. And they're just hugely talented guys. And that's sad. I mean, when I was racing, the crew guys were all full-time. They showed up at 8 in the morning. Yeah. Probably didn't leave till 8 the following morning. But they got paid well. They had benefits. It was a profession. And bless their hearts now, there's a lot of volunteers. And that's great. Yeah. And the drivers are driving, I think, for little to nothing. I find that sad.
Yeah, it is really volunteer-led and driven right now. Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
And bless them, for doing it.
Yeah.
But is it sustainable like that?
Yeah, it is interesting to think about, but about 12, or when I was in college, there was actually a position that was open on one of the teams. There was one position they wanted to pay someone to bring in and kind of put under their wing and learn the A to Z about the boats and all that. And I thought for a minute about trying to do that. But I was in college, and it's like, well, which way is this going to go? Is this going to last 6 months? Is it going to last a career? No. Am I going to leave college and then have to come back a year later and lose all my time? So,
it's always been a gamble.
Yeah.
It was a gamble for me. It was a huge gamble. It paid off.
Yeah.
But now it's not even a gamble.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
I know you want more, but you'll have to wait until next week. The final episode of the Chip Hanauer Fireside Chat will be released next Tuesday. We continue to stroll down memory lane, but we also talk more in depth on Chip's take on the future of the sport. In the meantime, find our posts about Chip on social media and take a minute to share your favorite memory of this hydroplane legend. We have a lot of great memories shared so far, and my favorite memory has to be when Chip returned for one last year of racing in 1999 and got his last Gold Cup victory in the Pico over the Miss Budweiser. But I want to hear your memories, so please take a minute to share with us. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our episode. Make sure you come back next week to listen to our next episode. We release new episodes every Tuesday at 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button on your podcast player, as well as rate and review your experience. For more updates on Hydro News, check us out on social media. We're on the major players, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Roostertail Talk is also online with our website, www.roostertailtalk.com. On the website, you can sign up for an email subscription list to get notifications on upcoming episodes, Hydro News, podcast updates, and much, much more. Finally, this is a free podcast to all of our listeners. And if you're really enjoying your experience and want to help us to continue to grow and expand, please donate. You can find a link to donate through PayPal on our website through the support tab. So until next time, I hope to see you at the races.